because they're looking to actually kind of streamline how they work with clients and systematize it so that they can get a little bit of their time back and just be a little bit more efficient in how they work.
Welcome to the Fractional Edge, the turbocharged podcast that's your one-way ticket to unlocking the full potential of your workforce planning. I'm your host, Carol Fraser, a workforce planning whiz, fractional chief human resources officer, and a CEO who's been around the block and probably tripped over a few HR manuals along the way. With over 4 successful ventures under my belt, I've mastered the art of navigating the challenges faced by small and medium-sized businesses like yours. Get ready to dive deep into the exhilarating world of fractional executive staffing strategies, where every twist and turn is designed to turbocharge your business success and leave you ready to supercharge your company. From hilarious success stories to side-splitting strategies, we've got the inside scoop to optimize your business and keep you grinning from ear to ear. Let's rev up those engines and dive headfirst into the fast lane of business brilliance.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter where you are. You are at the Fractional Edge podcast. My name is Carol Fraser. I am a fractional chief human resources officer. I am the host of this lovely podcast as well as a workforce planning expert. Now, the Fractional Edge podcast was designed specifically for CEOs, PE firms, owners, founders, to be able to find those fractional executives to help give their company a competitive edge. And today's guest is amazing. I can't wait to dig in deep. This is Jess, our fractional CMO. So Jess, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Jess Shira. I have been in the marketing world for 15 years and working as a fractional CMO for 3. I work with 7-figure clients and have worked with brands like Jenna Kutcher, Lululemon, Pottery Barn, Strava, and Deloitte in the past. And I also have Fractional CMO School, where I teach other marketers how to launch or grow their own business as a fractional CMO.
Now, I was reviewing your website, and it's probably really nice to know exactly who that ideal client is for you so that you're not necessarily, getting phone calls that aren't really the people who you can give all your magic to. So I would love to start off with this CMO school a little bit, only because I think we do have some people who are in the audience who might not be at 1 million just yet. And that might be a really great thing for them to learn.
Yeah. It's actually the target for Fractional CMO School is marketers.
Okay.
So the smaller client, if they're really not at 1 million, they're not really a fit for my offerings. Usually what I will do though, is we will maybe sometimes do a power hour session, or I'll make a recommendation. I've got so many other fractional CMOs or marketing experts in my space that I can share their way. But Fractional CMO School specifically, I created because as I started this business and I started to work with clients like Jenna Kutcher and some of these bigger names in the creator space, I kept having people contact me and say, how did you start your business and how do you work as a fractional CMO and what do you price yourself at and what are the packages like and how do you actually do this? Like how do you go from what you did to what you're doing now? And I was so lucky all through my career, many times, having people ahead of me carve out time for lunch with me, coffee with me, virtual meetings to share exactly their journey with me. And so I really wanted to pay it forward. So I kept saying yes to these coffee meetings and then just found myself massively booked up with them and repeating the same stories all the time. And so I created Fractional CMO School. I basically took what I was sharing with everybody and turned it into a course with templates and trainings so that other marketers who are looking to either get into the fractional CMO space and shift away from usually they're in kind of an executional / strategy role, or sometimes they have a functional expertise, they might be a social media lead or something like that. They kind of want to shift into overarching strategy. So this shows them exactly how to do that. Or I also have other fractional CMOs in the program because they're looking to actually kind of streamline how they work with clients and systematize it so that they can get by a little bit of their time back and just be a little bit more efficient in how they work.
This is amazing. It's almost as if you're sharing your own personal magic to every CMO that's interested in also being in the space. I love that kind of abundance mindset. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's literally all in there. Like I truly do believe I'm like everyone can succeed at this and there's enough pie for all of us. And I think like I really think like the magic is what you bring to the table, like your own perspective and your experiences. So I can teach people the methods, but I know they're not going to be me and I'm not going to be them. And so we're going to be a match for different types of clients. And it's really cool. Like I sometimes get clients come my way that aren't a fit for my niche or my set of clients I like to bring in. And so I'll refer them out to the students that are in the program. So it's kind of a cool dynamic and ecosystem that I'm building.
It seems like you could also be that person that if the CEO or the owner didn't really know exactly what they needed, that would also be a good phone call for you.
Totally.
That's amazing. So you talked about niche. So give us a little idea of like, where do people see the best magic out of you? What kind of clients do you like working with?
Yeah, great question. I work with clients who are usually at 1 million and above in revenue, somewhere between 1 and 10 million usually. And I kind of have two niches that I specialize in, either e-commerce brands in sort of the lifestyle space, or I work a lot with creators who have digital products. So that might look like memberships. I've got lots of experience in membership marketing. They might have courses or masterminds or, like PDF products or something like that they sell. So those are kind of my two sweet spots that I really focus on.
So those clients that you had mentioned before, are those some of the clients where you were able to apply your magic with those niches, or was that maybe a broader client that helped you define your niche?
Yeah, some of the clients I mentioned in my intro, like Lululemon and Strava, that was in my corporate career. Jenna Kutcher was one of my first clients as a fractional CMO, though. So I've been able to, I'm really pulling on all of my experience when I'm working with clients, but specifically for those ones, that's kind of like the span of my career.
Gotcha. Okay. So when you now are focusing on these niches, what made you go towards that specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny. I actually talk about this a lot in Fractional CMO School because I find almost everybody really struggles with niching. And I certainly did. I had a huge resistance to it when I started this business 3 years ago. And I think when I look back, like it really did come from a place of fear and scarcity because I thought, if I niche down and I'm just the CMO for memberships and courses, then what if like this kind of lead comes my way and I have to say no? Or what if I don't get that sort of business? Like it was coming from a place of like, there's not enough of that for me to be successful with just that. Now, fast forward 3 years later, I know that there is. And I think also what I've learned along the way is that as I've niched down, two really important things has happened for me. So one is I have become like an absolute expert in the spaces that I work in because I eat, sleep, and breathe that. Like I love marketing so much. I'm like nerdy about it. I like have to force myself to step away from work. But like in my free time, I'm like reading marketing books. I'm listening to like a debrief on someone's launch. Like I'm like tunneling down into these areas. So I am such an expert in those spaces now. So for my clients, it's amazing. And I really feel confident that I know what I'm doing for them. And then on my side of things, when I'm doing things for clients, like building out a big strategy or building out a campaign plan or looking at a launch or looking at optimizing like one of their channels, there's a lot of like rinse repeat that I can do because my clients are kind of similar. They're always different. And I'm not saying I'm taking one strategy and copy pasting it to the next, but there's like templates I can use and reuse and kind of rinse repeat stuff in a way for certain strategies. So it just makes it a little bit more efficient. And then it makes me just my job like so much easier to do.
There's so many things I want to dig into that. So one, it's interesting that you said now that you're at year 3, you're able to really define it. I think there are a lot of small companies when they start out, they do cast a wide net thinking that, I'm going to capture everything and it's all going to be good. And I think each year for the first 3 years, you start to really realize, even if I did get that, I really don't want to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And like there definitely was some of that at the beginning too of figuring it out. And it wasn't like I was starting from scratch. I had, 12 plus years of marketing when I started this business, but it felt like I was starting from scratch in some ways because it was just coming at it from a different angle. And so I definitely took on like projects that I would never do again, types of clients I wouldn't work with, but I wouldn't trade any of that because it kind of taught me lessons along the way. It helped me figure out like, who's my ideal client? Who do I really want to work with? Who am I actually best suited to work for? Because there's some clients that I'm like, wow, I actually like really can't help here. Like, I don't know that space. I don't know that industry. I would have to go learn a whole bunch of things. And so it gave me a lot of clarity around like where I best can serve people.
That's so important because there is enough to go around. I completely agree with you. One of the other things that you said I want to dig in deep is on this templated thing. I mean, that is what makes things scalable. That is what makes things sustainable. That is like, it's great to know that there is a way for you to ramp up a new client even faster because you're not reinventing the wheel each time. And it's really leaving the client's magic to be highlighted and not necessarily the process. Can you dig in more on that?
Yeah, it's something that I've kind of done from the beginning. And I think it probably came from like my corporate experience where there's always templates, there's always resources to lean on. And it was just naturally something that I started doing early on in my business. And so now when I work with clients, I have like such a bank of things I can pull from. And like I said, sometimes they're templates. Like I might come into a client and see that they're tracking KPIs, but it's kind of all over the place. They've got a social media report and email person's over here. So I'm like, okay, let's get you on my standard like KPI scorecard template because it's got all the things we need. It's got the CEO view. It's got, all of the pieces. Or there might be instances where, I'm giving someone advice on how to hire a paid ads agency. Well, instead of creating or giving that advice over and over, what I did was create a guide so that the next time I have a client that has the same, thing they're hiring for, I can say, here's a guide with all the questions I would ask, some considerations, things I would look for, and a few recommendations of my top agencies that I would consider.
Yeah.
And so
I
think I'm always I'm just kind of always on the lookout for like, what can I templatize and reuse again in my business?
That's brilliant. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what is your process when you do get a call and you're trying to figure out exactly what the needs are. I mean, let's face it, a lot of times these companies, the reason they're calling fractional executives is they don't know exactly what that role means and they've been trying to do it. And there's always that discovery area.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say actually my niche that I work with now, usually they know what a fractional CMO is. And they have some idea of what the role would be. The ones that don't, I find, are a little bit too early stage usually, or they don't really have enough of a built out team, or maybe they don't have enough like traction with their business. But that being said, there still is like through the discovery process, I make sure that I'm getting a really clear sense of what their challenges are within marketing. Like, is it a team problem? Is it a data problem? Like they really don't know what's working. Is it an offer problem? In that case, it's like bigger than a marketing problem. Really try to get to like the root of that, understand their goals and what's getting in the way of them achieving their goals. And then I like to understand like resource availability. So their budget, like the strategies I put together are not for the startup company. They're for someone with traction and with a little bit of a team. So I need to make sure that like they're a fit for me in that sense, because the worst thing for me would be to hand somebody a strategy that they're so overwhelmed and they can't execute on it. And it just sits on their desk collecting dust. So I never want someone to be spending money on working with me if they're going to just walk away with something that like never gets actioned. So I'm digging into that a lot.
The resourcing is the key. The resourcing is figuring out, you don't want to sit there and do a lot of the administrative stuff, and what exactly do they need in-house to support the strategy that you're putting together? That's my little bailiwick of the workforce planning. What do you need at what level, and how many of them to screw in a darn light bulb? So when you're dealing with that, tell me a little bit about your experiences in that, maybe both corporate and as a fractional.
Yeah. Typically from a resourcing perspective, I have those conversations early, and I learned just from working with clients that I didn't dig into that soon enough. So it's usually on the sales call that I start having that conversation. And there's a portion when I'm walking through my offer deck that I talk about the role of a fractional CMO, because I did mention a lot of the times they know what the role is, or they've heard of the term, but sometimes there can be some confusion. So I like to make sure that, if you're bringing on me as your fractional CMO, I'm going to walk you through what that means. Like, that means I'm an executive leader. I'm sitting at the C-suite table with you in the other C-suite. I'm planning strategy. I'm thinking ahead. I'm tracking the right KPIs, making sure the right needles are moving, unblocking the team, leading and mentoring the team. What that doesn't mean is I'm not writing emails. I'm not creating a landing page. I'm not designing and scheduling social media posts and responding to DMs. And there is sometimes some confusion around the role, because I've come across a large percentage of fractional CMOs that are actually like a marketing coordinator or a marketing manager. And they're great. They're doing a great job. They come in and they're strategic, but they're also executing on all of those other things. So I like to make sure really early on, they're clear on how I see the role showing up, and that they have the executional support that they need to actually do the work. And that can look really different client to client. Some of my clients will have one person and they're sort of a jack of all trades. And then some of my clients will have a team of 10. They might have 3 or 4 internal and a bunch of contractors and an agency. And so it really is client to client. But I do say that I build my strategies based on the team and the resources available. So we kind of right size it to who's going to be executing, so that we're giving them the appropriate amount of work.
That's amazing. I mean, talk about the agility that you have there to be able to see it from so many different perspectives. From here's what I can do with you for strategy when you have this resource. Here's what I can do with you with strategy when you have this resource. And to really help that owner, founder, CEO build the bridge, if you will, to what ultimately it could look like when they did have the bigger amounts of resources. I would love to, do you have a story about kind of something that you went in and went, oh my gosh, and then you just knocked it out of the park?
Probably a lot. I'm trying to think of what I could share. There's been so many instances that I've walked into. I wouldn't say I've walked into giant big messes. I really intentionally try not to be the fix-it CMO. I don't really want to come into a company that needs the ship turned around. I much prefer to come in and be let's get you to the next level. Things are all looking good. We're just going to pour fuel on the fire. But I will say some of my favorite kind of wins over the last couple of years have been coming in, and I'm very data driven. And so I find that my biggest kind of, oh my gosh moments are when I come into a client who is at 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 6 million in revenue. And they're yeah, we don't know what's driving revenue. I'm what? So there was a big client I had last year that just had no visibility around all of the channels. And this client was very active on all social channels, email, SEO, their website, podcast, all of the things, and had no clue what was actually driving the needle forward. And so there was a lot of things that we implemented right away to get more visibility into tracking all of the data and understanding if you're spending all of this time, team, and resources on all of these things, there might be a whole bunch that you could just knock off and your revenue is going to stay the same. Or there might be things that are working really well, and with some little fine tuning could double your revenue. So having that data is super important. And I do find that is usually the missing link, or something that I come in and see almost with most of my clients anyways, that is a really easy, quick win.
Now, a lot of times that requires obviously technology, the ability to capture all of it, collate it and analyze it and put it in dashboards. You said you have some sort of platform?
Oh, well, it's different client to client. So it's not my platform, but we will build out. I have a data analyst who I pull into my team, and she helps figure out the gaps in our data, and then all the systems and how they will talk to each other and like what that's going to look like for us on an output perspective.
Got it. The data is key. And we've had a a chief data person, and they're like, you have no idea what your data is telling you a lot of the times. And even as an HR person, we always talk about confirmation bias when we're talking about employee reviews or anything like that. Many times people see data as confirmation bias. They're like, I knew it was doing that. I knew it was doing that. And they just turn a blind eye, but see this over here? And I think that's where fractional executives can walk in, and it doesn't have to be for a lot of time, every week, every month, but we help you see those blind spots that you've just become blind to, right? I mean, you know what your business is, that's your job, and you know how you want to be portrayed out there, but you don't know how to expand it, if you will, or how to capitalize on it. And that's where you come in and bring your magic.
Yeah, I think it's that fresh perspective. Like so I work with clients on a fractional CMO basis, but I also have some advisory and coaching clients. And some of them are even like marketing leaders. So they are CMOs themselves, or they're VPs of marketing. Like they are the head of marketing at their company. And I love working with them, and they love working with me because I'm bringing fresh eyes. Like they are in their business day in, day out. It's really hard to have that fresh perspective, but I'm just dropping in once every 2 weeks, and I'm able to give them like a fresh idea, fresh perspective, help them kind of look at things differently, help them problem solve, have someone to use as a sounding board. So I think that can be really valuable too, and something that, I think a lot of people don't really think of and know that support can be there for them, because it can be hard being the one at the top making all of the decisions and trying to have all the ideas and steer the brand and the marketing and all of those things. So to have someone there to almost partner with you can be really helpful.
Yeah, those people who are there full time are those hamsters on a wheel. They're keeping everything moving. They're vital to a company's staying afloat. However, to try to find that creative time or private time to keep up on what's happening out there and, what's the latest trend or what's the newest technology that could help to automate XYZ. That's where fractional people come in, because that's actually what makes us competitive, is the fact that we're like, no. I mean, we earmark X number of hours every week to make sure that we're reading this and doing that and trying to find the right connections and network to make sure that you get what you need at a moment's notice. So that fractional component is what helps those existing chiefs and that coaching and advising to see things from a different angle. That's very true. So what would you say that you run into when it comes to people's perceptions or assumptions about fractional executives?
I would say that there can sometimes be the role misconception that I mentioned, where they think that, someone's coming in as a fractional CMO to do all of the marketing. So I've come across that quite a bit. And then I would say sometimes there can be a perception that as a fractional, you're not part of the team. And I don't think that's true. Certainly not in the way I work with clients. Like when we start off with clients, I do have a team, but we make sure that we're really integrating with them. And we want to know and understand, like, what existing meetings do they have? What are their processes for campaign and planning strategy? How can we fit in with them? And then potentially maybe optimize and improve our processes. But we really want to get ingrained with the team and try to understand, what's working really well already, where are some opportunities for improvement. And yeah, I think that's probably a big one, because I think a lot of people just think it's going to be this like kind of consultant arm's length relationship. And that's definitely not how we do that.
So, in all of the I find that when I interview fractional executives, many times they do have to deal with these perceptions, right? One, that you're going to do everything, soup to nuts. You're Wonder Woman and you're going to, hey, Wonder Woman, you're Wonder Woman and you're going to be able to, do everything with, at the drop of a hat. And then there are others who are like, well, no, I want your brain, but I don't think you need to be in the meeting, if you will, and trying to explain to those executives, you are going to continue to talk. And unless I'm there when you're ideating and having frustrations and planning, I'm getting the filtered version of whatever it is that you want to tell me, a perceived, just your perception. Having me in the room gives you full access to my brain as you're talking to make your brain and your ideas kind of move at the same time. When you in marketing are in the room, you are pivotal to what that particular brand is going to look like, that's going to draw in the client. Do you find that there is maybe some kind of advice that you could give to those CEOs and founders to kind of help them get past some of these perceptions?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually it's making me think of another thing that sometimes comes up that I think is going to be even better advice. I will often hear from founders, from CEOs, oh, well, we did our, strategic planning process for the year. Like, I guess we're late, or maybe we'll wait till we're done XYZ big strategy thing or whatever. They feel this need sometimes to wait and do it after the thing or after the project, or they did this other strategy thing. And I find that the sooner you can start working with a fractional CMO, the better. Because even if you're right smack dab in the middle of a big project or you've already planned your strategy, the sooner somebody like me can get in and start to sort of see what's there, maybe pull things apart, maybe just start to see where there might be room for tweaking and optimization before it's too late, that the sooner the better. Because the worst thing is when we come into a client and everything's locked and set, and we're like, okay, well, I guess we kind of have to work in these parameters. There's how we would have done things if we were brought in at, an early stage. And then there's when it's too late, we can only do so much. So I think earlier the better.
I'm going to just kind of riff off of that one. I couldn't agree more. And this is what I want our audience to hear. You don't need to hire a full-time fractional. And full-time meaning whether it's 5 hours a week or 15 hours a month, whatever. You could ask a fractional CMO, fractional CHRO, any one of these fractional executives to be a part of your planning so that you know that in the future, when you need that person has already set you up on the path to success. Then when you walk in and it's time for the person who's there for 1 million to 10 million, they've been there advising you on an as needed basis, not necessarily getting their hands dirty and doing the data analytics and, making sure that the team is cohesive or mentoring anybody, but just the advising side of it. If you were to have them come in, all of those things that you mentioned are outputs of that planning strategy. And if all they do is bring you in for the outputs and you had no voice in the strategy, then I always find this with workforce planning, everybody forgets the career experience side of it. And they go directly to, hey, I need recruiting. Hey, I need training. Hey, I need, performance management. And I'm like, so what are we exactly evaluating here? If we haven't actually been in the room to help you plan for what does good look like? How are we going to measure that? I always say, and I'm sure your data analyst would say, what are the questions that we're trying to answer, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's
crazy. Well, I would love to just say, what is one question that you wished I would have asked you? That probably will parlay into a whole other conversation.
Oh, yeah. So many things. Well, I'd love to tell you about our new agency. So I just went through, I'm actually currently going through a rebrand. I started this company as Marketing by Jess, and it's no longer just me. I have a team of other fractional CMOs and other marketing experts. And so our new agency name is Navi, and super excited about that. We're growing, and I'm hand-picking the best talent from Fractional CMO School to come join my team and work as a fractional CMO with me and our amazing clients. So we're looking for marketers and fractional CMOs and clients to be part of this ecosystem we're creating.
Oh, that's amazing. So now with your niche in the membership world, are you bringing on additional fractional CMOs who have different niches or just different skills? What exactly is it that you're putting together with Navi?
We're actually staying direct to consumer niche focused. So we probably will stay in the lane of e-commerce or like digital creator business, just because I think it helps keep our marketing more succinct. And that's kind of the leads that naturally come our way. And I want to be able to pass on really great clients to the fractional CMOs that come into the fold.
That's amazing. I mean, look, if you're a one-stop shop and people can tap people can tap people on the shoulders who have different personalities, because we know sometimes there's a lot of people out there who have similar skill sets, but it's always about the connection that really makes the whole thing work. It makes it easier to work, to communicate, to get to the end zone. It's all of that. So that's amazing that you're kind of just expanding your team with very similar mindset. And look, if you're mentoring them, it's going to be good.
Thank you.
So, one thing that I also wanted to ask now that I mentioned that is, you've had a kind of a nice background, well-rounded background, because you said that you had really good people who invested their time into you. And now you've got this Fractional CMO School, and now you're expanding even by adding more people on. What of that are you able to advise others on and help them build their business, just even aside from the marketing component?
Oh, that's a big question. I think the biggest piece of advice I would say is, and I even start the training in Fractional CMO School this way, is having a really, really clear vision of your life, not just your business and what you want to build, but your life. Like, what do you want your days to look like? What do you want your years, your days, your weeks, your life to look like? And then build your business around that. Because I see so many people build a business that they feel like caged into, and they're like, okay, I'm working way too much. I have no balance. I'm doing work that I hate. Like, I can't get rid of this client because they're paying the bills, but I don't like them, or whatever. Like, all of these scenarios that they've kind of almost like accidentally fallen into because they didn't go into it with intention. And so I think just being really grounded in like, who are you and what do you want to build, and just being intentional in the steps that you're taking.
That is just great advice overall for our listenership who are founders and owners. And if you are dealing with a client that you're like, God, I can't get rid of this client because they're paying the bills, now's the time to maybe step back. That's an amazing piece of advice. And look, you're a coach and a mentor, so I'm sure that you've said that to a number of people and made them super successful. So how can people get a hold of you, Jess?
You can find us at risewithnavi.com, or you can connect with me on Instagram at marketing.by.jess, or I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day, and for all of our CEOs and founders and all the PE firms who are talking to these types of companies that she's helping. This is somebody that you could definitely have on your team. And remember, the fractional movement is what's going to give your small business that competitive edge. You no longer need to be a jack of all trades and trying to be a master of all. You have people out there who are willing to give 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours of their week to support your company's growth. So by all means, visit our website, thefractionaledge.com. Be sure you subscribe, share, like, comment on all of our social media. Let's make sure that other small and medium-sized businesses know that this is there for them and that we are here to help you collectively become super successful. Thank you so much, Jess. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Fractional Edge podcast. We hope you had as much fun as we did in unraveling the mysteries of workforce planning and fractional executives. If you're feeling pumped to unleash your competitive edge, don't forget to hit that like button, share with your fellow trailblazers, and subscribe to ensure you never miss out on our electrifying episodes. If you want to dive deeper into the wisdom shared on today's podcast, head over to our website, thefractionaledge.com, where we can help you connect with guests, explore exciting collaboration opportunities, and subscribe to our newsletter. Until next time, keep your business soaring, take care, stay inspired, and we'll see you on our next podcast.